Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Good morning, and thank you. I'm excited to be here, Elizabeth.
I'm excited that you're here too. We're going to get into some really good stuff. We found out before the conversation that we've got some commonality. I'm from Pennsylvania. You live in Ohio. So we are definitely kind of, that area of the US. There's a lot of common things that bring us there together. But I want to just get to know you and stuff today in our conversation, Belva. But we always start the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast episodes off on a bright note with a little bit of words of inspiration from this really fancy caregiver jar that I created as a way. I collected all of these things that spoke to me when I was, in the throes of caregiving, and then created it as a gift for my sister when we changed reins of me being mom's primary caregiver to Susie being mom's primary caregiver. So let's get your thoughts on some of this. So 1 second, I just realized I need to have this in a different place. Okay. All right, here we go. So
pick a good one.
I know today's little inspiration says, spend more time with people who bring out the best in you, not the stress in you.
Oh, I love it. So this is so appropriate for where I am right now in my life journey. I love doing a variety of different things, and recently I had an opportunity, new things, right? I had an opportunity to do something new and brand. It was phenomenal. The outcomes were great. We planned a major event, and it was a success by all measures. But boy, the stress level was really high. And I found that I did not handle that well. And so it has literally taken me about 3 months to detox from that experience, just because, the stakes were high, dealing with a variety of different things. I am, for the most part, retired, even though I don't even like using that word, but, I don't go to a 9 to 5, or, and now nobody's leaving to go outside their home pretty much to do a 9 to 5. But I was really engaged and involved, and it was stressful. And I realized that I had not taken the time to replenish. And one way I do that is really hanging out with the things that bless me, not stress me, right? Hanging out with people, doing the things that bless me. And I realized that I was kind of giving from a lack of abundance, which is not a great place to give. And so like I said, it's taken about 3 months to just kind of level set.
Yeah. What were some of your warning signs that you felt like you were not quite yourself?
So when you talk about, self-care, some of the warning signs, I wasn't healthy. I didn't feel healthy. I'd stopped exercising, not doing the things that, meditating. I like to get up in the morning and read the Bible and then meditate, on the good things, stop doing that. Not sleeping. So, all of a sudden you're going to bed after midnight, waking up before, 4 o'clock in the morning. So some of those things from a health perspective. And then really not feeling in control of, little things. So when people depend upon you and you're spending more time making sure that their things are done, the home, the house looks good, or you're making sure their bills are paid timely, and you're not doing that for yourself, that's not a good place to be. And
No.
so that's when I knew that not only was I out of balance, but the stress was there. And I wasn't feeling good about myself. I love the name of the podcast, Happy Healthy Caregiver. I don't think I was happy, and I certainly wasn't healthy. So now I'm really starting and saying, okay, I'm going to set some boundaries and make sure that I take care of myself. So for the month of May, I've exercised every day. I've closed my rings. For those of you who have an Apple Watch, it's all about closing your rings.
Yeah.
I'm closing my rings daily. I'm going to make it today, for the whole month. And I hadn't done that. It looks pretty sparse when you look at the months before. So just little things like that. So that's the warning sign. Was I was not happy. And I also realized that I wasn't healthy. It wasn't good health.
Yes. And good for you for setting some important boundaries. I get sometimes myself in too deep too. I like to serve, and I'm a productivity ninja sometimes. And sometimes it's like, and I'm also a coach, right, on caregiving and self-care. So I have to be really mindful about doing the things that fill me up. And one of my little phrases that helps me is when I get asked to do stuff, and I get asked to do a lot of things. But now I have a filter that says, if it's not a heck yeah, then it's a no, because I've got to like really feel like it might be doing some stuff, really good stuff for people. But at the end of the day, like when you say yes to something, you say no to something else. And we cannot say no to ourselves for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes,
So
yes.
being able to say yes to yourself is so important as a caregiver, because you already know. I mean, this morning I said yes to my mom who wasn't feeling well. I took her to urgent care. I said I needed to be on this call, and I was able to do it. But you realize as a caregiver, many times your time is not your own. So that which you can control, you really do need to make sure that those are the things that are, as you said, blessing you. Those are the things that are feeding your soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you. I did not know that you had to take mom to urgent care. And of course, we could have rescheduled, because I always understand the caregiving thing. But maybe this was the self-care that you needed today. Who knows?
Yes.
We'll find out at the end. We'll see, Belva. We'll check in back with you. But tell us. So you mentioned mom, but tell us a little about your caregiving role and how you became this caregiver for other people.
Well, thanks. It's a threefold caregiving role. So I care for my dad, really started the whole process back in 2016. He became ill, had some health challenges from October 2016 through May of 2017. He was in and out of the hospital. And to a point where I made a decision at that point, because there was just so much back and forth. I decided that I would not return to a full-time job, because I really needed to be available for him. I will also say it was kind of a dark time, so I was thinking his days were numbered, but he's
Mm.
been living, he's still alive, he's still with us. But in 2017, at that moment, I thought, oh, his days are numbered, and that's another thing for caregivers. You just don't know. You
There's
really
no crystal ball. My mom took the scenic route, I say too. Like she
Right,
did.
right. The
Yes.
expiration date, there's no expiration date. So my friends will tell you at that point, I thought, you know, I've got to be available for my dad. And so every time he went to the hospital, I'd stop everything and be there. I was his advocate. I would sometimes stay overnight. My parents have been married for now 67 years. And
Wow.
so just to give my mom relief, I would do that. I stopped, we were traveling out of the country doing different things. I made a decision not to travel out of the country, because it seemed every time I came home, there was a major incident. So just a variety of things. So that it started there. I am a retired, I don't like using that word, but former um, former healthcare executive. And so I knew about healthcare systems and the insurance side of it. And so that helped me be a better advocate for my dad. I'm the secondary backup for my mother, who's the primary caregiver. And so when she's not feeling well, it's like, okay, I got to stop, make sure that she's okay. And hence this morning, taking her to urgent care, something minor, but she has always been very attentive to her healthcare needs. And I think that's one reason why she's 90 years old and she's in great health right now. She's just, something
Good.
happens, she's going to
That's
the
kind of
doctor.
rare, actually, I feel
It's
like for that
a very
generation.
rare,
Yes.
and she's talking to me about, oh, you need to do this, tomorrow I'm going to see my PCP, so she's happy about that. And then my husband, let me see, 3 years ago, started having some healthcare challenges. He's got a chronic illness, but then some other things developed. And he has always, or prior to this, we've been married for 37 years, or will be 37. And so he has always been, very athletic and on top of things, and, just I just didn't expect anything to happen this early, I'm gonna say, in our lives.
Hmm.
And so when he became ill and to the point where he could not, in some cases, speak for himself, then I really needed to step up my game. And I will tell people this. I know I could navigate the healthcare system because I've been a part of it, but the healthcare system is not intuitive, it's not friendly, it's not easy. And so you really need to get in and be, if you have a loved one or someone you care about, you gotta be, you gotta be kind of all in. And it may feel for some people a little aggressive because usually in healthcare and medicine in particular, we have a hierarchical appreciation for the doctors at the top, whatever the doctor says goes. But you got to ask questions, and if you don't understand, ask the question. I will Google something in a minute. I'll take a picture of an IV bag and figure out how to spell, the name of whatever drug it is, and then read about the side effects, and then proceed to ask questions.
Yes.
So in my family, so really my core is my dad, my husband, or I'll say differently, my husband, my dad, and then my mom as a, just as a backup. And for them, for my parents, I am the person who, you know, does a lot of runs errands, make sure that they're getting food. Like we stopped and got breakfast. My mom gets so busy, sometimes she doesn't stop to eat for herself. So just being that backup. And then when my husband is in an acute situation, just being all in. When I walk in the door, they know. I hate to say it. They're like, okay, we don't know what you did. We don't know what you do, but that wife is here. I don't know what the notes say in his chart, but it's like, we need this, this, and this, and this is how we're going to do this. So,
I
yes.
appreciate you bringing all that up. I mean, you were on the inside of healthcare, and you can see that it has its, it's tough spots, right? And I hear you that someone's got to be an advocate and like kind of keeping all the pieces together. I almost equate it to like project management, like, at
Yes.
work, someone's got to be the project manager. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we got to be doing it all, but we have to kind of know what's going on. And it's hard, right? Do you have siblings, Belva?
No, so I am an only child, so that heightens my sense of, I think sometimes fear, concern, because I am the only child. But I rely on my aunts and uncles who are more, in some cases, more like siblings, cousins. And literally, it's a village.
Yes.
I have friends who are dear to me who happen to be clinicians. So if I've got a question, I have no problems sending that text going, okay, this is what they're saying that, we should do for my dad. What do you think? Or have you heard about this? Or I'm in this particular system, because sometimes people become ill and you're not at home. So I'm here. Do you know anybody in St. Louis? Do you know anybody who's at this hospital? Because I need to be able to, understand what's going on. And
Yeah.
remember, with my husband, a lot of this was happening during COVID. So you've got to deal with COVID protocols. What does that look like? Whereas with my dad, when he first became ill, things, I mean, you could stay overnight without any problems whatsoever. In fact, they welcomed you. If you want to stay overnight, you certainly could do it. So,
And there's
uh,
nothing like having like eyes right there. Like I
right,
know
right.
it's hard to know what's really going on if not somebody's not checking in and reading the notes and the chart and putting your eyes on their numbered machines and things like that. So I feel for all the people that have had to really endure some hard stuff during the pandemic, for sure. You told me, when we were getting to know each other, that caregiving is not for the faint of heart. What do you mean by that?
So caregiving, it's like a jealous lover. I mean, it requires demands your time, your attention, will make you get up in the middle of the night when you haven't had any sleep, will cause you to look at your loved ones. I mean, You do things that you never thought you would do. Unfortunately, I have an aunt, my aunt, who is very close to me, recently passed away,
Sorry.
and her sister, thank you, she had a very aggressive cancer. From the time of the official diagnosis to the time she transitioned, um, it was 5 weeks. And but the good news is that I had an opportunity, along with my her sister, my aunt, to visit with her. And we stayed overnight in the hospital to give her daughters, her adult daughters, respite. We had no clue the symptoms that she was dealing with at that level. I saw things I had never seen before. And I was telling my aunt, okay, we got a man. Well, in our case, we say, put on your big girl, panties, and, put on your big girl shoes. We got to man up, because she was being so strong. We did not want to be wimpy in front of her. And so she had, because of blockage, GI blockage, she was literally coughing up feces, fecal matter. And
Oh
I
my.
know, never seen that, right? So, and you just imagine what she's going through, right? So to be able to clean and suction and do all of this other stuff, she's got all these tubes and everything. Why do I bring that up? Because that was like some really scary stuff that we saw. But her daughters had been dealing with this the whole time.
Well, to them, it was their normal in some ways,
It was
right?
their
Like,
normal, right? It was their
yes.
normal. So what do you do when a situation like that, when you're a caregiver and you talk about, bless you, God bless you, when you
Thank you.
talk about showing love and compassion, that wasn't my time to like gross out, right? Because she's dealing with this.
Yeah, you
So
had to do it to a little window. They're doing
I'm just
it.
a little window, so
Yes.
I can only imagine the level of pain, what was going on, if this was something, one of the symptoms. So literally, I thought at that particular point, there were some comfort things she'd been complaining about. And I knew that there was a different mattress and a different bed. And for those of you who have ever been in the hospital and they have those whiteboards, and they'll give you information on the board about who the doctor is, the nurse, telephone numbers, things like that, pain levels. But there's also a place on many of the boards where you, as a caregiver, can write a note to the clinicians. And so I just said, I had a whole laundry list of things because I was tracking them. But
Oh, we need a
and I, and I
Belva. Everyone
and I
needs a Belva.
travel. Look, I travel with my own dry erase marker, which is another thing. They're like, "Oh no, you didn't. You did not come here with your own dry erase marker." I was like, "Oh yeah, you're not going to keep me from communicating." So I wrote that she needed, I said, family request, um, a special mattress, because she was complaining of pain. And so when she got that bed, and I was only there for 36 hours, right? She got that bed, she called it the Cadillac bed. It was just comfort. And we talk about palliative care, and there's a lot of things that we cannot do, but whatever you can do to make that person comfortable is, it was worth it. And so for me, that was my contribution, to be able to say, I know that these beds exist, can she get it? And when she got it, she just said, oh my goodness, it made a
Uh,
difference.
yeah,
That's an
it's just
example.
there. I love that. And the dry erase marker, that is
The
going to
dry
be
erase
always
marker,
caregiving tote. Yes, put it
right.
in.
I'm just telling you, I have one in my pen. I'm in my purse all the time, because you just never know. And they kind of laugh. And then sometimes I'm a little benevolent and I'll say, well, here, because the clinicians are always saying, oh, we don't have a marker, I'm like, okay, here, take mine. I have one in my bag, but you can take this one in my purse, just so they can keep it updated. Yeah.
Yeah, so good. So good. I was thinking about the things that you were talking about with being an advocate, and you really spotlighted what's the invisible labor, frankly, that a lot of caregivers are doing. Moms do it, caregivers, like this invisible labor is happening where, until we start talking about it on podcasts and social media and blog posts and things, like we need to really kind of highlight it.
Right.
And I think then how it helps other caregivers identify, oh, that's what I'm doing. Oh, yes, I'm a family caregiver, because it's also this disconnect between owning that role and taking responsibility for it. And then the other part I was thinking about is I've been thinking a lot about Chat GBT. I don't know if you've explored this at all, Belva,
I just
but
been studying that. Okay, go ahead.
yes. Yeah, so it's an open AI, and I haven't really talked about it on the podcast, but I've been trying to become educated about it and thinking about how it could potentially help family caregivers. Do you have any thoughts on
Oh
how?
my gosh. So we just talked about this yesterday. So there are a couple of articles and we can share that out
I would love
afterwards.
that. Yeah, share it with
So
me.
somebody did an article, I think it was in Inc. Well, anyway, there was an article and they said, here are like 7 things that you could do with the Chat GPT. And one was a to-do list. So you talked about project management. Caregiving, a lot of it is project management. And you heard me say earlier that I knew that I was experiencing some stress because there were certain things that were dropping, from my to-do list. I was making sure I got their stuff done, but I wasn't attending to some of the things that I did. In fact, and I apologize to anyone who sent me an email in the past month or 6 weeks that I haven't responded. I just stopped doing emails
She's covered. She
because
was covered up.
yeah,
Yes.
I was I just, because there's another family member who's going through some, his status has changed. So here's what Chat GPT I think can do. I haven't tried it. I didn't download the app yet, so I need to tell you that. So I'm doing my due diligence to figure out, do I go with the free one or do I, get a pro level? So I'm still trying to understand that. But the to-do list, just being able to have AI, the generative artificial intelligence, generate a list of things that you should be attending to. And there are great resources out there for caregivers about, things that you should do. Of course, making sure your documents are in order, you know where they are, you have those crucial conversations with family members, you know which questions to ask. And many times you've got to ask them many times. It's iterative. What mom says or what my dad said 6 years ago is probably different from what he would answer, how he would answer now. So you got to check in. But to generate the to-do list would be great. The other thing I mentioned, emails. Sometimes that's busy work that all of us have, and you just need to be able to respond. The Chat GPT can give you, can help you draft and
Yeah.
compose emails. That's another thing. Or you heard me talk about history. Every time I'm with my father in particular, starting in 2017, I have my iPhone. I would capture on my iPhone questions. I probably have, I don't know, 25 questions about his family history. And when we were spending time together, I would just ask, when you were younger, what was your favorite color? Or what did you want to be when you were at this age?
Mm.
And I documented all of that in my iPhone. But I think with with AI, our Chat GPT, I might be able to use that as a tool to help me turn that into a story.
Yeah. Or ask
Because I haven't,
deeper
right,
probing questions or
more probing questions. Absolutely right. So here we've talked about, generating a to-do list or helping with project management, helping you manage your email, almost like an executive assistant, or paying your bills. I mean, just triggers, reminders, things of that sort. I think
yes.
there's some things that can help caregivers because what we end up doing, we keep doing our day job, whatever that day job is. And then we're adding these other tasks to what we're doing. And I hope that the Chat GPT would help us delegate some of these non-critical thinking, non-human type tasks to help us, to
Yeah.
better understand it. That's why I
I
started
think
looking
there's,
at it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of ways. I've just been really challenging myself to think about it too. I think there's a lot of research that could be done. Every time a doctor, like you were doing so much research on medications and different
Mhm.
diagnoses, and, take it with a grain of salt for sure, but it can simplify rather than opening up a bunch of different articles on, Google, it will kind of scrape all of that stuff and summarize it for you. And then one of the things I always ask too is like, what was your source of this particular thing, so I can kind of see if it's a trusted source, or are there other opinions? Like you have a conversation essentially with it, And I think it can be helpful for that. Now, on the flip side, as a content creator, I'm also a little skeptical of it because it's scraping some stuff and it might be using some of my intellectual property.
Right.
And that's irritating. And maybe it's going to reduce some jobs and things like that. So there are two sides, most things with technology, right? Like there's like this a little bit of a love-hate thing. But I do think there is a place for Chat GBT for caregivers. It's never, in my mind, going to replace the personal connection
Right.
of like a care coach or somebody who's been walking through it, but it is going to give you maybe an outline or a framework of things that could fast track you to some stuff a little bit faster.
And I would say I agree with everything that you said. I like the fact that you're even being intentional about thinking how you can use that, how you can incorporate it into what you're already doing in terms of caregiving. But I also think there's an opportunity for us if we're smart enough and willing to offload some of the myriad tasks, mundane tasks that you end up doing as a caregiver, because that's really the challenge. And I'm just going to say this: if you're, and you know, I'm going to talk about females, or if you know, whatever the caregiver, the nurturer, whomever you are in the family, usually the role of caregiving falls upon that person.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, think there's more to come on that for sure. So, but let's explore it. Maybe just try it. I'll put the link in the show notes so people can try the free version
Right.
and just dig into maybe some of the questions that they have. And hopefully we're all going to sleep better. You know, once we kind of park this stuff, I always kind of feel like we have a plan. You touched on it a little bit, Belva, but you had shared with me too that as you know, a woman in the African American culture, there is this expectation on the children, and especially the daughters. And in your case, you're the only child. You know, how is this expectation kind of played out for you, and what are the privileges and or the sacrifices that it has presented for you?
So, great question. Let me start by saying I get to care for my parents.
Mm.
I
You don't
get to
have to.
do
You
that.
don't have
I
to.
don't have to. It's not, you know, it is such a privilege and an honor to do that. And I've seen that played out. My parents cared for their parents. I watched it. And, you know, my aunts have cared for the parent, you know, my grandmother and their in laws. I've seen it across the board. So there's an expectation. My parents are very, when my dad first became ill, and we had the conversation about, you know, his prognosis and what does it look like. And this is probably early 2017. And my dad and mom said, um, whatever you do, don't send us to an institution. We're not going to a nursing home. End of discussion.
Did you promise?
You promise, right?
No,
So I
did
was
you? You did promise.
I did promise. I said, I
Okay.
mean, my parents really asked that, and I said, you know, and we were looking at a variety of different ways to augment caring. You know, what should when he returned home, or at the time, if he returned home, you know, what would that look like? But they said, no, we're not going to die at a nursing home. You know, that's not it. You know, sell the house, do this. You know, we'll move in with you. We're like, oh, my husband's going, but it's an expectation. My husband also said he knew that I wasn't going to move. We had ideas. My mom and I just had this conversation. I was going to move someplace else. We were going to move someplace else. But then when my dad became ill, I was like, no, can't do that. I need to be close. And now I'm thinking about, you know, what does this look like, you know, going forward in the next couple of years? Do we need to move into a multi-generational home? You know, people think about their children coming home. We don't think about the parents moving in.
Yeah, or like a granny pod in the
Or a
backyard or
granny pod,
something.
exactly.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? So first there's an expectation, and I'm going to say just in our family, that's an expectation that the children, the daughters, in some cases they think the daughters-in-law, or sometimes they say the daughters-in-love, will care for the parents, the elderly. I'm seeing it play out in my family where that is not happening, which is a you know, kind of interesting dynamic, and it's with some of my younger, you know, younger members. But for the most part, people just assume that their child is going to take care of them. because the parent was there for, when you were a child, and therefore you will do the same. And it's kind of a given. We talked about this from wealth management perspective, where it's just people just assume you're going to take care of the next generation. You're going to take care of your extended family. That there's a communal feel about this, or in some cases the unmarried person who's not, has no children, it's just assumed, in the case of my paternal aunt, that she was going to care for everybody, and she pretty much did. She cared for the kids when she was younger. She was an LPN, and then when she retired, she cared for the elderly.
Yeah.
Her
There's a
parents.
lot of assuming happening, I think, for
There's a lot
sure.
of assuming. And so when
Yeah.
you talked about the lack of pay for these services that are provided, it's major. And there's such a shortage right now of home health aides. It's difficult to hire people. During the pandemic, they've had difficulty. We've had difficulty augmenting the care that my mother provides, with reliable individuals. We had someone who was phenomenal, and she is phenomenal, but she just, decided she's doing something different. Her job, she's moving to
Yeah.
another level. Right. It's okay.
And good
But
for her, but at the same
good for
time, it's like, oh
her.
no,
But
yes.
we've had difficulty trying to replace someone who has the work ethic, who has a level of care. This is really about nurturing and loving, and being willing to do some things that aren't really, fun
Very
jobs.
intimate and personal.
Very
Like
intimate.
you want to pick somebody that understands you culturally and can talk to the stories and be kind of, yes, you want the care, the quality care, but it's also somebody that's in your home. And so I think, it is a struggle,
Trust.
and this
Right.
invisible labor. Like, I know that this is something that I'm hoping to explore more. I just became a fellow for Caring Across Generations, which does a lot of good stuff. And so I'm really trying to, like, I see story sharing of what we do on this podcast and the things that I put out as a form of advocacy for sure. But I do want to understand, like, the systems and how we make real change in this space, because, you've said it yourself, you made a sacrifice with your career. Would you have done that? Like, looking back, in hindsight,
Well, I was at, what, I'm glad I was able to do it. I was at a place where my the job that I had, unfortunately the organization closed. I had a phenomenal severance package, and I was using that time to pursue community service, philanthropy,
yes,
kind of my travel, my loves, right? And so it just happened at the right time, and I was able to make that decision. But I know executive women who hire someone to be in their home. They bring their parents to their home, right, to live with them. They renovate. They've renovated the first floor or whatever family room and turned it into, the parents' hospital bedroom, right?
yeah,
And then they come home from work, and they're caring for that parent at night.
it never
Um,
ends.
Never ends. So I hear that story. I mean, I've heard people, throughout my adult life talking about moving in with the parents, or the parents moved in with them, so that they could provide that level of care. And I think it's more common than not. I've also flew next to someone who was saying they're spending $10,000 a month for their parents, two parents, one with Alzheimer's, to live in, kind of an assisted living facility for dementia. And if she had to do it all over again, she would have, sold their home and purchased a different home, sold both homes, and bought a home where they could live, because nobody thought the parent was going to live as long as they did.
Yeah. And I know, like, my parents weren't in a memory care, but my mom was in an assisted living community for a while. I still had I was still primary caregiving, and I was still paying sometimes for other people to supplement. And we were buying a car. That's what I call that. Like,
Right,
you're buying a car
exactly,
every month.
exactly.
Like, that is so much money that, and thankfully we were in a state where we had the money to do, but so many people just don't even have those options.
And you have to think about that. I start telling people, it's, think $40,000 to $80,000 a year for this level of care, and then you don't know. so I have an uncle who's in Miami, a paternal uncle who's not doing well. And so we're looking at, what is the next move for
Yes.
this individual? And I've looked at assisted living facilities and really tried to understand what does it take to run an assisted living facility? What is a good one? Or, if you're looking at a nursing home where you go on Medicare.gov and you can see the 5-star rating. With my parents, they thought 5-star rating was, like a hotel rating. So my dad is like, I don't need to stay in a 5-star hotel. And I was like, no, yes, you do. You need to stay in a 5-star, nursing home
Yes.
facility
The days
because
end
it's
of
got
assisted living
quality.
is not going to
Yeah,
work
yeah,
for
right,
your,
exactly. It's
no,
not going to work. And
no.
so once they understood that, then he started saying, well, wait a minute, my daughter is got, she's looking at this. And it's more than just seeing what's on paper, as you know. You've got to
Yes.
go visit the place. I'm not telling, caregivers know this, but for those of you who are new to it, you got to go visit several times before you make a decision, unannounced, middle of the
Yes.
day,
And talk to
weekend,
other caregivers.
and
Those are the
talk to the
best. Those are
caregivers,
the best.
right?
The real, not the
The
professional
real,
ones. You can talk to
yeah,
those,
not right.
the
But
families, the
the
families. Yes.
families, talk to the families and they will tell you, because this is your loved one, you're entrusting them to this care, and you're not going to be able to be there
No.
365 days a year, 24/7. So it is really, it's really a lot. And I taught, I want to talk to all, women, African Americans, all individuals, but I would say, when I said earlier, this is not for the faint of heart. This is really, this requires so much that many people don't understand the toll that it takes for you as you get to, like I said, I get to do this, but it's a huge time commitment. What happens? Everything can be going
Yeah.
great. And then, they've got a UTI, a urinary tract infection, and they're hospitalized for something. And then all of a sudden you're starting all over again. And sometimes you never get back to the level that they were before that particular incident. And then you have to, come back again. Just when you think you got everything set, then something could happen.
Something and which is why, Belva, like your mindset of, you get to and you've accepted this role, and yes, and you have figured out how to make it work in your life, where you have prioritized your own health and happiness and are setting boundaries and making time for yourself, because you can't be depleted and have a crisis happen. You're going to be like in the goal is not to be in the fetal position in the corner and just crumbling, the whole world crumbling it out. But you've got to kind of be at your optimal self to kind of handle these asteroids that are kind of coming at you and the different things. And it's not all bad. Like you said, there's lots of moments where you were talking to your dad about history. And I'm grateful for the time that the intense time that I've had with my parents, when they were alive. So it's definitely not all bad. But I want to switch gears though, Belva, and ask you, because now you're not retired, really. You are like, I don't know, we need a better word for this, but you are really leaned in to helping with the communities, and you serve on several boards. And the one in particular that I wanted you to chat about is the work you do with the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging. Like, what is this institute all about, and why is it important for you to spend time on this? Because you've got limited time. So as far as the people need attention, but you've decided this is a heck yeah. So why is it a heck yeah for you?
So Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging is a heck yeah for me, because all of us are going to age. If you continue to live, you're going to age. And the mission of Benjamin Rose is to support caregivers and to help all people age well. So when I realized that that was the mission, I thought, oh, this is something that I could support, right? I joined Benjamin Rose when I really wasn't, at the beginning of my caregiving journey. So I realized that Benjamin Rose is the best kept secret in Ohio and the nation. We always talk about AARP. Benjamin Rose does research on aging. That research is available nationwide. We have a wonderful program on caregiving. We care because you care. I think I just messed that up, but the care consultation piece was critical. So when my dad started to show some early signs of dementia, that was like for me, that was the straw that was going to break my back, right? It was like, oh no,
Hmm.
I can't deal with dementia. Um, so I literally was in a meeting, at a board meeting, listening to the program, the care consultation program, and realized that Lisa was talking to me, that I am the, ideal, I'm the client. You know how you have like this out of body experience? And I said, okay, I really need this service. So I reached out to her, and I was connected with someone who did the most important thing at that time, armed me with information, with trustworthy facts that allayed my concerns. So they gave me assurance that this,
Mm.
what I'm feeling emotionally, what I perceive, it's legitimate, because you start to question everything when you've got a loved one who's, saying things, you're going and seeing things that might not be there.
Yeah, and
So
you don't have the tools, like you're
you
correcting
don't have the
them and you're
tools. You're like, am I in a, is this a, multiverse?
Groundhog
I mean, like,
Day.
yeah,
Yes,
what happened to my dad who knows everything, remembers everything?
you're grieving. Yeah.
You're grieving. So they not only gave me tools, but access, to a variety of different resources. I was able to have critical conversations with my parents. The one thing that she told me to do, which was to have an assessment, fortunately for my father, the PCP Cleveland Clinic has a home care program where the doctor comes to the home. The staff will come to the home and care for the patient. So when she did the assessment, we realized one thing: he had a UTI. So if you got a urinary tract infection, sometimes you see these symptoms that appear to be, dementia, right?
Yeah.
So once they were able to do that, and they, got that under control, then that, the symptoms went away, which was a great thing. But I also learned about my mom and how she was responding to it. And she has zero tolerance for illusions and a whole bunch of other stuff. She said, nope, we're not doing it. Today's this date. This is where we are. And so it was kind of fun to watch how we approached this differently. I think I was ready to curl up in the fetal position, because I
Oh
just could
no.
imagine my dad, who's like always been so on top of things, starting to lose that memory. And my mom was like, kind of like, no, we're not going to do this. We're not doing this,
Maybe
David.
in denial a little bit.
And
Yes.
denial, this is what we're going to do. But together we were able to look at this from a structural perspective. So why do I give my time and attention to Benjamin Rose? Is because I know I'm not the only person who needs that care,
Yes.
needs that information. In addition to that, they have great resources for people who are 55 years and older. Everything from how to manage your finances, do your taxes, buy a home, um, to homey apartments for individuals who are 55 years and older, to a variety of different things that you can do in the community in our Rose centers. It's available for them. We deliver meals on wheels. Um,
Hmm.
it's just it's a full gamut of things, and the research and advocacy education role is just one component of it. But it's really kind of a full service. What do we need to do to look at aging well? And 20% of the individuals in Ohio, or at least in Cleveland, greater Cleveland, are over the age of 65. I don't know what the percentage is for 55 and older, but
Mm.
I'll end as I started with this question, which is, if we continue living, all of us will age, but the difference is, will you age well? And I think that Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging provides resources and tools to give you the opportunity to age well.
I love that. So I recently, I became a certified senior advisor. So I'm learning, and I'm 51, will be 52 this summer. So, but it's helping, I'm helping other people, but it's also helping me, set up myself to be aging well. And one of the things that's important, I think, for all of us to learn as we're aging is that age and disease are not synonymous. Like, you can age very well, and we do not have to, decline and have all these things, but it is about the choices that we make. And it's important for caregivers, for everybody to kind of prioritize their own health and happiness in order to set them. Your future self is going to thank you. And not only that, but like my kids are going to thank me, my, grandkids maybe at that time. Like it really has a ripple effect on the whole nucleus of family and friends.
Yeah,
So
I absolutely agree. My mom is 90 years old. And as I said, when you see pictures of her, she looks phenomenal. And she does extremely well. And one of the things that I learned from the head researcher at Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging, I was like, what's the secret? What's the secret for aging well? And he goes, your mom is 90. I think she knows the secret.
yeah.
And that's when I started asking her. So, just taking care of your health, staying active, learning new things. She loves to do Zoom.
Socialization. Yes.
Socialization, all of that. And what you eat really makes a difference. Really
Mm-hmm.
makes a difference longer term. So I'm trying to do
Well, you have
more.
good examples. My parents are
I
both
do.
deceased. I'm trying to change that, cycle in my family. I don't have a lot of examples of older people in my family that have lived into their 90s. I think I can count them on one hand. So it's hopefully something that we can change. Well, I'm going to link to the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging so people can check that out. I think you don't have to be in Ohio.
No,
Proper. You could get on their email list and benefit from, I'm sure, some of the resources and activities. And is there a fee for the care consultation?
no, right now, because of generous donations and from philanthropy, there is no fee. At some point, there may be, but you can check for the care consultation. And I know they're doing it beyond Greater Cleveland. And then, as I said, there are resources and tools that are available on the website that are for free. So
Yeah.
take advantage of that.
I love that. Well, thank you for making me smarter about what Benjamin Rose has to offer. And that's what we're doing here too, is just fast tracking people to the resources that are going to help them. Well, I know we talked about self-care a little bit in the beginning, but I want to I'm going to ask you some questions in the lightning round, Belva, and I'm no doubt that you're going to be roll with this because I've really enjoyed our conversation. But this is a book that I wrote because journaling was so healing for me as a family caregiver that I wanted people to have a little taste of it without this additional overwhelm. So it's a prompted journal. Every day has a prompt where hopefully they can look inward and put some spotlight and focus back on themselves while, doing all the things for other people. So who do you lean on for support, Belva? That's one of the questions.
So I have a strong faith. I believe in God, so I lean on God, and of course, my husband of 37 years. That's who but God first. I'll say it that way.
I love that. What's your hubby's name, by the way?
Mark.
Mark. Well, good job,
Yeah.
Mark, too, for being Belva's person. What life accomplishment makes you proud of yourself?
Ooh, there are so many, but I'm gonna say our daughter is 30 years old, and she is my life accomplishment. So I worked hard, but I was never sure if I was doing the right thing. I was an executive. I wanted to be that executive who could have a baby, and stay married and raise her and everything. And then, I was doing some stuff that was a little, my priorities sometimes were not clear. But she just graduated from law school. We celebrated that this last weekend, and then she's engaged to a wonderful. So there was an engagement party.
Nice.
He proposed to her at the pre-graduation party, so we're so excited about that. And I'm going to get emotional. I've been kind of wimpy because I can see. I remember when, we first learned that we were pregnant, and to see, you just don't know how they're going to turn out, and just to see that she has become who she is. I always said, become who you are. That's what I said from infancy. And so that's my greatest accomplishment. There's some other stuff I did.
Yes, that's great.
Buildings that I built, and all that other stuff, which were great, and they're still standing. But man, to be able to see something generational is amazing. So yeah, that's my number one.
I think it's good that you showed her some of the rocky spots. Like, none of us are perfect. We're all human. More grace for us, less guilt.
Yes.
And she's seen some of those things too. So that's going to inform her path as well. Okay, last question. Let's see. If you could give yourself, your younger self, a piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't be afraid. Yeah, that would have been, don't be afraid. Sometimes I'm a little too cautious. Fear of taking risk, and fear is false evidence appearing real, and so
Mm.
it is false evidence appearing real. And many times the things that I was afraid would happen never happened. You get into that what if thing. What if this happens? What if that happens? And then you're so inert that you don't do anything, and it's because of fear. And so I would tell myself, don't fear.
I love it. I love it. Well, we get some wisdom, right? As we start aging. It's one of the benefits of aging, right? Is to really be able and to pay that forward. So I love that. To take some things, yeah, we always, I think, can get them in our head, and we tell ourselves these stories of these things that are of the way that they're going to be. And I think I'm with you 100%. Like a lot of times they do not even play out that way. The things I have manifested to be such a big deal have just been not big. And there's
Right,
very few
right.
things that we can't, pivot from. There's very few things.
Exactly. If
Yeah.
nothing else, during the pandemic, we learned how to pivot.
Yes.
And the important thing for us is to remember everything that happened before this time, before the pivot, you can use for your good. Seriously, you can learn
Yes.
from it. It made you stronger. We used to say that which does not kill us makes us stronger. So you just kind of go, okay, I can do this. But that's what I would tell. So now I just turned 65 in the house. And I share that because this is the last day of May, which is when we're doing the podcast, and this was May is older.
Yeah, Older Americans Month.
Older Americans Month, and I thought, okay, I'm going to own being 65. And let me just say, I've been thinking about the things that I did and what I would do differently. In a part of really, it is just to go bold, to be bold, to enjoy each moment. Unfortunately, I know lots of people didn't make it to 65, didn't make it to 51, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And so you really have to just, and there's so much left that we can do. There's so many things that are available for us to do, either by caring for others, but care for yourself first.
Mm. Well, look out, world, because bold Elizabeth and bold Belva are coming out. I love that. Is there what other? Okay, we're getting ready to wrap the show up, Belva. But is there anything else that you're like, oh, I can't let this end without saying this? Any parting words of wisdom for family caregivers? And then, of course, I want you also to share where people can stay in touch with you and reach out if they would like to.
Okay, so parting words of wisdom. I think I love the happy, healthy caregiver because I've been looking at that during our entire conversation. Elizabeth, thank you for allowing me to tell my story. And what I would share with people is that you create your own happiness.
Yes.
It's really within you, right? You decide. And then the healthy piece, put yourself first. And if it's just going for a walk or meditating or doing deep breathing or whatever it is that you need to do to rebuild, to refuel, to renew, to refresh, make sure that you make that part of your daily list. When we talk about list, and I said it before, you can't care for others until you care for yourself. Self-care is not optional. So
No.
that's my words of wisdom. If you want to get in touch with me, the best way to reach me is on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Belva Denmark Tibbs. I'm going to update now that I said 65 out loud. I think I want to focus more on coaching and mentoring, and really sharing this wisdom with whomever is willing to listen.
I
So
love it. Well, yeah, and we will link Belva to your LinkedIn account. We'll link to the Benjamin Rose Institute and some of the other resources and things that you shared. I made some notes while we were talking, so I'll be sure to put those in the show notes. And I just want to say it's been a privilege to talk to you today. And you are a shining light up in Ohio. So thank you for everything that you do for your family, for yourself, and for your community.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for the podcast. Thank you for telling our story. You're shifting the narrative about what caregiving is and can be. So we appreciate you.
Wonderful. I hope so. I hope so. We are stronger together for sure. Thank you, Belva, for your time.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.